Hey guys, Mr. Hudson here coming at you live. Let's go ahead and show you a little bit about Amazon Web Services today as far as setting up an Amazon Linux EC2 instance with WordPress installation. We're going to be using PHP 7.0 and a MySQL database, so we're going to go ahead and set those things up for us today here, okay? So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. What we want to do here is go ahead and launch an instance, okay? So there's many flavors to choose from, but we're just going to go ahead and pick the this one up here, the 64-bit, and we're going to push it onto a T2 Micro, which is free for the free tier eligibility deal, right? So we'll go ahead and see here, it's a VPC. You don't really need to change anything here. You just want to go ahead and make sure your settings are basic enough there, and then we'll go ahead and review and launch. And looks like here we need to actually edit security groups. We need to add a couple rules. Let's add the HTTP and the HTTPS, right, for later on when we add an SSL certificate to our website, but that's not now, that's a little later. Okay, and let me edit the security groups again. For some reason it likes to add all these like that. So we'll go ahead and review and launch. And we'll go ahead and create a new key pair, and let's title it EC2 Primary AWS Design. That's fine. Okay, go ahead and download the key pair. So we want to keep that close to our heart, as I like to say. So save it as at a known location, and you want to go ahead and launch the instance. All right, and I'll go ahead and pause for a minute while this launches, and we'll revisit here in just a second. Okay. While this is initializing, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to go ahead and convert your PEM file into a PPK file so that you can use it on Windows PuTTY if you're going to log in through SSH through PuTTY. So we have the primary HWS design. So you just hit OK there, and then you want to go ahead and save the private key. You say yes, and then I'm just going to put the word HWS primary design. Primary there, okay, and then go ahead and save. And that's it. And then so you've gone ahead and you've saved the key pair as far as that goes, okay? So go ahead and now you see the instance is running, so by the time we did that, that's good to go. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is go ahead and grab another elastic IP. We want an elastic IP, so we're going to create one. And then once it's created, you need to then associate it with an actual instance. So I believe the newest one is 2737. Let's confirm that. About 100%. Go back to your EC2 dashboard. Go to Running Instances. And then the last instance here is 2737. Yes, that's correct. So go ahead and go back to there and see how there's no instance associated to it. We'll go ahead and associate the address to that, and then it's going to give us this 172 elastic IP. And then we can drop that and go ahead and associate. Okay. So now if you go back to your EC2 dashboard, you'll notice that I now have a different IP address. And so in fact, if you go here, it's probably not going to really go anywhere, but we'll see. Yeah, it doesn't exist anywhere yet. You got to build it. So basically you have a server sitting out in Never Never Land that has nothing on it. You got a hard drive, you got a CPU, and you've got some RAM sitting out in an Amazon server farm somewhere. And so now you need to configure it to say, hey, I do exist. Hey, I want WordPress. Hey, I'm going to do this for you. And so that's what we're going to walk into right now. So I'm going to put you on hold for just a second. I will be right back. Okay guys, thanks for your patience. Now I'm back. As if you really waited long, right? So anyway, we'll go ahead and connect this bad boy to a PuTTY connection. Okay, so what we need to do, and you can download PuTTY off the internet. I'll share the link with you in my video later. I will share all the links with you as far as what we're covering here today. And let's go ahead and open up a PuTTY session. It's taking longer than usual. And we're going to come over here, and we're going to go ahead and connect to public DNS, right? So adding 2 and 2 together, what is a public DNS? A public DNS tells your web server what to call your website, basically, at this point. So we don't have a domain associated with it. Otherwise we could say EC2 at hws.com, for example, instead of all this other gibberish that you see, which is basically the IP address. So and then if you go down here, you also need to go and add the SSH authorization key, because without that, you're not going to be able to log in. And that's why we converted it from a PEM file to what you can see here as a PPK file. You see that? So go ahead and click on that. Make sure that's the right one. Design primary, and that's the one I want. Go back up here to session. I like to save my sessions. You got to give it a name. That's why it's barking at me. So let's call it, I'm going to call it like this. We're going to call it primary AWS EC2. I'm not going to get into the reason why I have 2 primaries. If you've watched any of my series, you'll know why. Alright, so, but this one I can distinguish with the 1 in front of it, okay? So we'll go ahead and save it like that. See that? And then go ahead and open a connection. Let me drag this bad boy. This popped up for me. The server's host key is not cached in the registry. You have no guarantee that the server is the computer you think it is. Well, I know it's me. So let's go ahead and go over here, and log in as is the very first thing you'll see. What you need to do here is go ahead and put in EC2-user. This is the generic username that Amazon Linux AMI gives you. So, excuse me. With that said, from here we will run everything that we need to run. Okay. There's many ways to skin a cat, but this is a good one to show you, how it's going to kind of come together with what we're going to be doing here. So first off, let's go ahead and jump in, and I want to introduce you guys to installing a LAMP web server on Amazon Linux. Okay. So the procedures that we're going to walk through now will install the Apache web server with PHP and MySQL support on the Amazon Linux instance. So it's sometimes it's called LAMP web server or LAMP stack. You can use this to serve or host static websites, or deploy a dynamic PHP application which reads and writes information to a database, which is where MySQL comes in, or RDS if you really want to get technical with Amazon. But we're just going to stick with MySQL. So the prerequisites for this is going to be that we assume that you already have launched a new instance with a public DNS name and that it's reachable from the internet. So with that said, it is, however, not quite reachable from the internet. As you can see, it comes up the site can't be reached, but that's because we haven't really done anything yet. We've just created a name. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and walk into generating the LAMP web server, like I said earlier. So let's go ahead and get started. So here you're going to want to go ahead and say sudo. Sudo is a command used to basically say that you have the administrative rights to run the next command. So sudo is like a preliminary command to the following commands, if that makes sense. So what I'm saying is you want to say sudo, and then you're going to yum update -y stands for yes. I don't even want to get prompted for anything. I'm just going to push on through. -y yes. So go ahead and hit enter, and what you see here is it's going to go ahead and update all of the current things that are already existing on the server. It's going to go ahead and update those to say, hey, you know, is there a new version out there? If so, go ahead and add it onto the server now so we don't have to worry about it later, basically. I kind of like to look through this and thumb through it to see what it's actually doing. It's still going, but I can still scroll right now. In fact, I can make this bigger for us. So you see how it's extracting the packages and the information that we need here. You know, kernels that are going to be needed, and so on. Okay, it was 52 megabytes of information. All right, so that's good to know. I mean, I don't like to take up my whole screen with it, but I do like to see what I'm working on, right? So that was the first step to getting this going. You want to make sure everything is updated, everything is ready to roll before you start pushing through some of these other commands, because you will be backtracking if you don't. So that's important. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and now that our instance is current, we can install the Apache web server, MySQL, and PHP software packages. So we're going to continue to use the yum. It's called yum install. I don't know the why to the yum. Maybe somebody can leave a comment if they understand that. But we're going to use the yum install command to install multiple software packages and all the related dependencies at the same time. So this is kind of cool. So check this out. We're going to say sudo yum install -y http 24 httpd 24, excuse me, PHP 70 MySQL 56 -server, and then you're going to say PHP 70, and I keep saying 70, it's 7.0, which is the newest version, MySQL ND. Okay, go ahead and hit enter on that, and what you see here is it's just basically extracting all that information from the internet where it pulls it from, and so let's go ahead, and now what we're going to do is going to start the Apache web server. Okay, so we're going to say sudo service httpd start. So you actually just started Apache. You run in your server right now. Now, does it do anything yet? I don't. Oh wait, it does. So now we can say, hey, look, I've started Apache. It runs perfectly, and here we are. Okay. So leave it at that. Go ahead. Let's move on forward, right? So I want to go ahead and go into the sudo service http start. We did that, and so now let's do the check config. So this file right here, check config, and we're going to basically see how httpd is running. So you see here where it says 0 off 0, and then it says 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. So they're all off at the moment. So they should say on, but the problem is we didn't turn them on, right? So what we're going to do is actually back that up, right? And let's go ahead and say check config. We're going to say sudo check config httpd on. So now run that command, and what you should see is that, see how 2, 3, 4, and 5 are on? That's what you want. That means that Apache is running on the correct ports that it needs to be on. Okay? So it runs in levels 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and then that's, like I said, it's what you want to see. So we already went ahead and tested our web server. We already saw the Amazon Linux AMI test page, so that means we're cooking with butter. Okay? So now we're going to go ahead and move forward here. So let's go ahead and go through the files that we need to go into with our root directory. Okay, so now this test page appears only when there's no content in the var www HTML file, theoretically, right? When you add content to the document root, your content appears at the public DNS address of your instance instead of this test page, theoretically. And I say that because of my previous instance, that didn't happen. But I was making some HTTP2 changes that I think affected the way that the WordPress installation was configured, and I think it was an Apache config file that I I might have made a snafu on. So that's where you have to be careful with some of these configuration changes. Make sure you only do one thing at a time. So let's go ahead and do what, let's go ahead and get these EC2 users. Let's set the file permissions for the www group to your instance, right? So now the way this works, the way a server works, right? I'm not going to get into too technicalities, but you have files and folders and folders and files, right? You got to figure out which direction some of this information is going. So when I look at it, I think of, okay, what is facing the public side of everything, right? So in this case, it's actually the www folder that's facing the public side of users, right? People that are coming to your server, web page server, from the internet. They're coming to the www side of everything. You got the public folder, www. You got to think that way, because everything else behind the scenes is what we actually do to get it going, right? So what I need to do is create a user and allow that user to be within the www realm of the outside. So I'm working inside, blah, 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 but I need to tell him, hey, this user can also go through. So that's basically what we're going to do right now. So with that, let's go ahead and do the Pseudo Group Add www command, okay? So what that did is went ahead and created the group www, right? So if and just to test this theory, I want to see myself. I like learning as I teach, because it helps you also understand. Let's see if we can go to the etc directory, right? Okay, there's that. Now let's list what's in here. ls. So ls lists everything that's in the directory. So if we look here, I see a lot of folders actually. PHP INI, a lot of good stuff. cpconfig.config. So what we can look at here as well is just kind of get an overview of what you already have versus what you may need to install. See over here, if you notice, there's yum config. That basically tells you that you can use the yum command. There's vim over here. There should be nano somewhere, I'm assuming. There's 7.0 INI already. There's your nano RC. So you have a lot of this, the basic stuff in here. Mail cap, we haven't even tapped into that section yet. So I was just kind of getting an overview of where we're at, but you should be able to go to etc. And now let me see if I can do a cd. Was there a, I guess the question becomes, is there a var? There's not. Is there a www? There's not. Let's see if it doesn't exist. That one exists. And then you can list everything there. So I don't want to get off track. I'm just trying to show you a little bit more of the fundamentals of within the server itself. So let's do a CD, and a little squiggly line brings you all the way back to what I call top of the directory. So you notice how I went from HTTPD, I was into two subdirectories, and then hit the little squiggly. I'm back at the beginning now. Okay, so anyway, we did the Pseudo Group Add www. So we went in. We created the www group to our instance. Okay, let's just leave it at that. Now we're going to add a user, in this case the EC2 user, to the www group. So with that, what we need to do is go sudo user mod a g www and EC2 user. Okay. So now that added the user into the www group, right? So now we need to go ahead and log out and log back in so we can pick up the new group, and then we can use exit command or close the terminal window, either one. It's going to look ugly for a minute. You're going to be like, oh, where'd everything go? But all I'm going to do is go back to PuTTY. And if you saved your terminal like I suggested that you do, and you dignified it in a way that you understand, you can simply double click on it and you will be back in. So EC-2, oops. And we mistyped our freaking name, and therefore You must do it once more. Alright, so we're back in. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other stuff we have to do. So from here, what we're going to do is we've already reconnected, so then we're going to run the groups command. And we should see EC2-user wheel www, and we do. Okay. So now we're going to change the group ownership of var www and its contents to the www group. Sounds simple? Well, it is. So we go sudo ch own. This is saying that you own this. -r, and you're going to say root www var www. And go ahead and hit enter. Okay. So now we need to change the directory permissions of the var www and its subdirectories to add group write permissions and set the group ID on future subdirectories. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. You got sudo chmod. Again, I haven't said that before, but forgive my PC. It has dual fans and it actually gets kind of loud on the recording side of things. But overall, I'm sure you can hear me. So sudo chmod 2775, that distinguishes the line number of where you're placing this command, and it's going to go var/www, right? Go ahead and hit enter. And I like to add a couple spaces in between my commands just to kind of get a dignification there. So let's go ahead and find var www, type d, and then we're going to do an exec command. We're going to execute that, and then we're going to say sudo chmod 2775. Notice it's the same line number we're going to, but we're adding a different command. That way it knows what we're doing. So let's go ahead and put that in. And once you do that, you want to make sure that there's no errors. It looks good to me, okay? Everything's running smooth so far. So let's go ahead and recursively change the file permissions of var www and its subdirectories to add group write permissions. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say find var. We're going to go back to the www. It's getting old, right? Type f exec sudo chmod 0664. Pushing that on that line number there. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and put semicolon. See how it took a second? But it did take. But it has to run through those commands in order to get to that point, right? So now EC2-user and any future members of the www group can add, delete, and edit the files in the Apache document root. Now we're pretty much ready at this point to get a static website or a PHP application on here. I mean, we're not there, but we're getting there. So with that said, let's see what else we can do here. You can add you can go ahead and configure at this point your Apache web server on the Amazon Linux to use SSL or TLS. I'm not going to do that right now because I recommend going ahead and standing up your WordPress installation so that you can ensure that it works properly before going back and trying to add all the bells and whistles, so to speak. SSL isn't necessarily I don't want to call it a bell or a whistle, but I'm saying it is an advantage of one of the Google algorithms right now is currently looking for, is your website secure? And it's actually a ranking factor at this point when it, a few years ago it wasn't. That's kind of hearsay, not relevant to the conversation. However, I do want to recommend that you go ahead and get SSL enabled after we do this presentation here today. Okay, so now let's go ahead and test our LAMP web server. So with that said, we should be able to create a PHP file and let it kind of be known on the internet there. So let's see what we can do here. So I want to go ahead and let's implement the echo command. And echo means basically in PHP that you're creating something from scratch. You're basically you're generating it out, right? You're echoing that command out. That's how it was described to me. Excuse me, I'm drinking to keep my throat going here. All right, so let's go ahead and go echo. Let me turn off caps lock. Echo. Let me type right. And then we're going to need quotation marks. You want to open brackets up, and then you want to open the question mark, right? So that's, I mean, if you know anything about PHP, that's basics right there. Echo PHP. So you can write PHP within Linux. I mean, that's why people like Linux, is because you can literally generate. I can create an index file right now and throw it out there and be done. You know, I mean, that's not what this is about, but I'm just giving you an idea. So anyway, we have echo PHP, and then we're going to say space PHP info, and then we're going to open and close those parentheses right away. We don't need those hanging around for no reason. Actually, I got too many. Pay attention here. And then you're going to need a space, and then you're going to close those brackets, and you're going to put those inside quotation marks, and then you're going to space again, and then you're going to open. Well, actually, that's you're closing a bracket there, but you're pointing it to the var www html php info.php, right? So now if you get a permission denied error when trying to run this command, try logging out and logging back in again to pick up the proper group permissions that you configured prior, okay? Because if you didn't do that, then you might get a permission denied error. So now in a web browser, let's go ahead and enter the URL of the file we just created, and let's see how it looks. So we're going to come over here. Here's our little public DNS, right? We're going to go ahead and say PHP info, which is what we just created, .php. Boom, and we're up. So here you can see we have everything going. I'm curious, is OpenSSL enabled? It's not, and that's fine. Oh wait, it is enabled. Interesting. So yeah. Let's go ahead and run back over here to PuTTY. All right, looks good. So now that we see the PHP information page, now note if you don't see this page, verify that the var and www html php info.php file was created properly in the previous step. You can also verify that all the required packages were installed with the following command that I'm about to show you. So you want to run sudo yum list installed, if you spell it correctly, http d24 php 70 7.0 MySQL, and I'm going to roll SQL 56 server php 70 MySQL and D. All right. So here it tells us what's enabled, right? I see three things. I see what we've already done, the HTTP D24, the PHP 70, and the PHP 70 MySQL. I'm fine with that. I am perfectly fine with that, and I think that's what you should see as well. So let's go ahead now. Now this is funny, and this might sound funny, right? So let's go ahead and delete that file that we just created. The reason I say that is because although this can be useful information to you and X, Y, or Z, it should not be broadcast to the internet for security reasons. There is a lot of great information on here that someone could literally hack you with in minutes. I mean, look, here's our root directory. Here's the IP address for the remote server where I'm sitting. You know, here's our server address. You don't want this information publicized on the internet. Now, if you want to see it again, you actually have to go in and create the PHP INI file, and then you can see it. The other alternative is actually, I think you can tuck it away in a hidden directory somewhere later after you've built your WordPress theme and everything's kind of moving smoothly. Then if you want to go back in and like create it and tuck it away behind the scenes, you can also do that. But in this case, I do want to go ahead and recommend that we remove it. So with that, it's just going to be rm, remove, easy enough. Var, we're going to go talk to the folder. and then we're going to talk to the file. PHP ini, info. Think of another file. And so now you remove var www html php info.php, enter, done, gone. And now watch, if I go over here and refresh, that's how quick it happens, it's gone. So now let's go on to secure the MySQL server. So now that you have a MySQL server, it's laying out there in the sheets too. You want to cover that baby up. So let's go ahead and get the default installation of the MySQL server. So since it has several features that are great for testing and development, they should be disabled or removed, for production servers. There's some cases where you want to have a MySQL set up to where you can test it, you can do your tables and whatnot on there, but you also want to make sure you disable it if you're setting up in a production environment. So that's what we're about to do. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start off. Actually, I think what I can do here is let's pause. This is a good 30-minute break clip. I'm going to go ahead and pause, and we're going to move straight into, this will become part 3 of our series now to build the to build the MySQL server. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause now, and I will see you guys whenever you're ready to build the MySQL server. Okay.